Welcome to the Podcast Cafe, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Hello, and welcome back to the Podcast Cafe. I'm coming at you with a brand new series that is launching today called Espresso Shot. These episodes are going to be bite-sized, and I'm going to be breaking down things that you need to know about podcasting to get you to the next level. So whether you're dreaming of starting a podcast, are in the phases of actually making it happen. Maybe you have a podcast and you're looking to grow it, or maybe you're just looking for tips and strategies on how to get to the next level in your podcast. This is the mini series for you. Every Wednesday, I will have a new episode deep diving into a very, very specific topic, either on strategy, on business growth. And today we're talking about the 3 podcast metrics that I always track and why they actually move the needle. This is for podcasters who want real growth, not just vanity metrics, which I think in the podcast world is very easy to get wrapped up in. This is easy to get wrapped up in on social media as well, where we look at the follower numbers or the download numbers, but really that doesn't matter as much as these other stats that I'm actually going to be chatting with you about today. So let's get into this episode. If you have a request for a topic in this series, let me know and it will definitely be covered. So send me a DM on Instagram, Espresso Podcast Production, or you can also find me on LinkedIn, and that is Hayleigh Hayhurst. Okay, let's get right into it. So whenever I work with my clients, I look at a couple different spots in their podcast to see how it's performing. And this all comes down to what they desire to happen, what their goals are. And even for my podcast, these are things that I track to make sure that I'm creating the content that you all are interested in. So let's go into metric number 1. And these 3 steps are all very important. So there's no order in them. Make sure that you're tracking all of these things on a quarterly basis. Before we chat about that, I want to talk about how often you should be looking at these, because I think there is a sweet spot between ignoring the metrics, which I see a lot of podcasters do, and being like hyper focused on them and not, you're being very reactive when you look at the podcast stats. You're like, oh, this episode didn't do well, so I will never create another episode like that again. That's not what we want to do. That's why I say we want to look at this on a quarterly basis, because if you have about 12 episodes or 12 weeks, that's really where you'll get the numbers that you can start moving the needle on. So metric number 1, I want you to look at your listener episode drop-off rate. So the episode retention. So they'll show you the percentage of people who stick around to the very end, or what percentage the listeners make it to. So you can find this on Apple Podcasts Connect, Spotify for Creators. Track these numbers, because if your podcast listeners are dropping off at the 7-minute mark out of an hour-long episode, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with the intro. If your listener is dropping off at the 40-minute mark and you still have 20 minutes left or 10 minutes left, that means they're not going to hear your call to action. So this comes down to being able to structure the episodes in a really smart way to make sure that your listeners are enjoying what they're hearing, they're actually listening, but additionally, what your goal is, which is probably the call to action, that's where they'll make it to. So what I try to aim for is at least a 70% completion rate. I'm going to be honest with you, no podcast I have ever seen, or, I don't think it's even possible for everyone to have 100% completion rate on every episode, because we never have 100% of anyone's attention ever, right? So most likely won't be 100%, so don't beat yourself up on the completion rate. Just aim for about 70% plus. So make sure you're cutting the fluff, front loading the value, and then teasing what's coming up to make sure that people continue listening. So, there's so many things that come into this, but make sure that you're definitely looking at the listener retention rate. Number 2, the metric that I want you to track is your conversion metrics. So are people clicking your links in your show notes? Do you have Bitly link set up? Do you have lead magnets? Are people following those? Are they DMing you? Are they clicking on your website? I'll get into some of my favorite tools for this in another episode, or if you want to know now, just send me a message on Instagram. But I want to make sure that people are taking action from the podcast for my own and for my clients, because the ROI of your podcast most likely will be in the conversion. Not a lot of shows that I work with are making all their money from sponsorships. Most likely they're using it to build their brand, to ideally getting new clients. So booking calls, gaining emails, getting more subscribers, selling their offer. These are things that we look at in the conversion side. So what I want you to track here is having every quarter one clear call to action per episode to be able to track the results. So instead of having 100 different calls to action, like, oh, go on my Instagram and click the link in my bio and fill out the form to work with me, and then go buy my course and then check out my blog. Whoa. That is overwhelming for your listeners. So have one clear to call to action. This could be downloading your lead magnet. This could be something free on your website. This could be joining your email list. I always tell people where they can connect with me on social media in addition to the lead magnet that I have. So that would be your cleared call to action. And a bonus tip here is, like I mentioned, Bitly links. Using unique links or landing pages to know what's working. This is just a way to level up your podcast. Not the most important, but if you want to track conversion, definitely use some unique links or some unique landing pages to see, is that lead actually coming from Instagram, or are they coming from your podcast, or are they coming from some other place? This is where you can see the real numbers, and I always think that the better your numbers are, the more organized it is, the better decisions you can make as a podcaster. And the third metric that I want you to track every single quarter is your listener growth rate over time. So what is the pace of your audience growing month to month? Is there momentum? What is the visibility strategy? So your social media, guesting, SEO. What is working, and where can we put in more effort or maybe put in more focus? So what I do is I look at the total unique listeners month after month and see if I'm growing or plateauing or whatever it may be. There's different seasons for different levels, but I always want to see a steady incline of new listeners. If growth stalls, that's where I revisit the promotion strategy of the podcast. So am I sharing it enough? Are my titles click-worthy? Am I getting in front of a new audience? Am I being a guest on enough podcasts? Am I putting out enough podcast episodes? Is my SEO working? You want to look at the growth over time to make sure that the efforts that you're putting in are actually worth it and they are doing the right thing. So definitely look and see if your podcast is growing month to month. As I promised, these are going to be short episodes I'm putting out every Wednesday. So today we talked all about the 3 things that you should track every month to actually move the needle in your podcast. So just as a recap, we talked about retention, we talked about conversion, we talked about growth month over month. So these numbers are telling you a story. Your podcast is trying to tell you things. It's up to you if you listen or not. So track what matters, not just what's popular. So instead of looking at your overall download rate, how many people are listening to every episode, look deeper. Look and see when they're dropping off. Are they clicking your links? Are you getting new listeners? These will actually move the needle more than just saying, oh, I got 500 listens this month. Well, what are those 500 people doing? Which of these are you already tracking, or maybe you're not tracking any of them? Let me know what your biggest takeaway was from today by sharing this episode on your stories or sending me a message. I would love to hear from you. And I will catch you in the next episode of the Podcast Cafe. Tomorrow's episode works really well with this one, actually. It is with Samantha, and she is a SEO expert. So make sure you tune into that, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind the scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the Podcast Cafe.